Hey everybody, Scott Euler here, back with a little bit of AI art on this fine Monday morning. So doing a little bit something different today. We're going to talk about a different engine that is out, or at least is coming available, and that's Stable Diffusion. So I couldn't get any of my cameras to work today, lovely, so I'm going to restart after this because I have a couple more things to do today, and I got a couple more videos I want to get out. But I want to talk about Stable Diffusion and what it's doing versus MidJourney and DALL-E and some of the other ones out there like Crayon and so on. And I thought it would be kind of interesting because I think there's a lot of misinformation about what these are. These are not competing engines. So the idea is that Stable Diffusion will eventually become part of some of these other engines. It's like an offering or a bolt-on, as it may be. So the idea here is that the Stable Diffusion methodology would be able to apply to things like MidJourney and so on. At least that's their goal. So this is a much more open system. So this is one that is actually under the Apache license. So who knows how they're going to actually run that as a business. It may be licensure to those backends or what have you. So it's a little bit different creature. And I want to talk about how to use it, some of the differences behind it, because I think it's a lot, it's a lot different than what you may expect if you're already a MidJourney user. So I kind of wanted to give some examples and kind of do some stuff there. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to bring up, I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to tuck it back because we're going to talk about this in a bit. This is how you use it. It is not the user-friendly system that MidJourney is at this point. There's a lot of things that have to happen with it yet, and they're not to the point where they have a UI for it. So if you're looking for something that's all polished and you got lots of buttons and it's very simple to use like MidJourney, that is not the current state of the product, although they do have a UI team. So I would expect great things from them eventually. But remember, they're kind of focused on it right now is getting the engine to the point where it does what they want to do. And it does some amazing things. It is a very good marriage between that and MidJourney and DALL-E. As I've been using it. I've been using all three engines, even to accomplish one single piece. So I'll show, this has been censored so I can actually show it. But I did this piece yesterday. So I did not do this live. This is just something I did. So I'm a body painter. So I had painted Alexia here a few weeks ago. And then the background is actually several MidJourney images that have been combined together in Photoshop to do this. I did something similar to this in another image that's in the channel here somewhere. I'm trying to do these weekly, and but these will eventually go into the member only area because they're pretty complicated. They're very long, and that's one of the things I'm trying to give back as a benefit. But this was really, I mean, it was a good picture to start with, but it had to become a great picture. And in order to do that, I needed to add some elements. And I have so many images that I've shot over the years that are stuck in this bizarre purgatory of I love the image, but I can't seem to find where it has to end or what I want to do with it. So that's where this ended up going, and I'm very pleased with it. It just came to me and boom, it was done. Now, this is not obviously MidJourney only art. I'm trying to take MidJourney as a jumping off point, inspiration, if you will, or ideation as I've called it, where I'm going to start there and I'm going to try and move forward with it to create something. So that's why I really love using it this way. This is kind of my thoughts behind how one should use AI art, but that might just be me, right? Anyway, so let's look at this image here. So I did this image and I used, it's an oil painting of Cthulhu. If you don't know who Cthulhu is, it's a horror creature from the 1920s, H.P. Lovecraft, rising from the ocean. It's an epic scene. I find epic scene gives things a lot more of a storytelling aspect to them across the entire image. Gigantic monster, which Cthulhu is, but I had to put it into perspective, and I think it put a person here for reference versus, say, a banana. And then Peter Moorbacher, who's a person I've supported on Patreon before, a great, fantastic artist. I have several decks of cards by him. Fantastic dude. And then the aspect ratio would be 3 wide and 2 tall. Forget this at the end. This is my preferred suffix, which you can get to in MidJourney by typing preferred suffix. And then it will go ahead and add that to the end of everything. It can only do -- commands at this point. It cannot do, you always prefer, say, Unreal Engine. It cannot do that. The Stable Diffusion does not have anything like that yet because it's still very command line-esque. But I wanted to show you this because I did this same thing in Stable Diffusion, and I want to talk about the difference between those two engines. So obviously Stable Diffusion runs the same as all these others. It's using a Discord as a front end, which I think is a really interesting choice. They have other front ends that both companies are obviously working on. But because so many people use Discord and it's so easy to, like, for instance, this is on On my server, I have a MidJourney room that people can use. That's a lot less crowded than the one that's in the main one. And I'm not saying, hey, come and use my server, because this is really for anybody. But I even created one for people that are my YouTube patrons. So this is kind of a nice way to be able to use this. But if you get lost in that main thing, you're going to get really lost when it comes to Stable Diffusion. So Stable Diffusion has the exact same idea. It does not, though, have a lot of the same sensors in place. So for example, it is possible to create a very naughty image, and you're going to get flagged for it, maybe banned from the engine. So, be aware. Don't do anything your mom wouldn't be proud of you for, as they say. And I think that's fair. Now, I was a body painter. I really don't care about nudity or whatever, but sometimes I want to use an image as a point of departure. And that's one of the things that this engine and DALL-E can do. And that's I think, really kind of where it gets more interesting for me. Now, these are things that are going to be, obviously some of these things are features that are about to come out, but I want to talk about how to use it today so you understand some of the basic command line stuff. So this, unlike the MidJourney app, uses a dream. So you put dream, and it does not ask for a prompt like it would in the other one. And then that's a little bit different because we get used to having to type imagine, and then we see the prompt pop up and we type in the prompt. So it's a little bit different interface that way. I want to pop back here into the bot for MidJourney, and I'm going to take this exact same, actually, no, I don't even have to do that because I did this already. Yeah, I did this, duh. Well, let me show you what I did, because I think that this is also pretty interesting. By the way, if you get lost in here and you're trying to find stuff and you're like, I can't find my stuff, this is the tip that you're waiting for in this entire video. That's its inbox up here. If you click this inbox and then click on unreads, you'll see this is what everything from every server you're on. But if you type in mentioned, now it's only things that are mentioned. So your name, so anything you ask for. So down here, you can see that I asked for oil painting of a Godzilla rising from the ocean, epic scene, gigantic monster, Peter Moorbacher. And then I used this seed. Now the difference between MidJourney and Stable Diffusion is the seed is very important to getting the same image out of Stable Diffusion. And that's where this tool becomes more interesting than MidJourney in some cases, because I can use the same seed and replace a specific thing or add additional nuances, and it will give me the same image. For example, I use this seed here, which generated these 9 images. And I'll talk about this command line in a moment here, but you can see this. Now I did it again, but I did it and I said Cthulhu rising from the ocean instead of Godzilla, but I use the exact same key. So that's this -S. By the way, it is a capital S, not a small s. And then this same seed, and it gave me the exact same scenes, mostly. The spirit is pretty much the same, but it used Cthulhu instead. So you could go back and you could say, I want a car full of cats driving, and then you could change it to I want a car full of dogs driving. In fact, maybe we'll do that example. And you're going to end up with it taking very much the same idea if you use the same seed to generate a similar image. So that's pretty promising. In MidJourney, if you alter any variable, you get a wildly different idea. And I think if you understand how diffusion works, and maybe I'll talk about that from a non-technical standpoint real quick. Diffusion is basically taking, imagine taking something like ink or blood or whatever, putting it into water and watching it kind of diffuse into the water. Now, at some point, you could take and go backwards with that and say, well, where was the original drop? What did it look like when it first hit the water? And that's kind of the idea behind diffusion, is you take a bunch of noise and then you kind of try and find an image in that noise using the prompts that you did. And then it kind of does something, and then it looks at that noise and goes, oh, I think I see something over here. And it continues to refine that noise or find the image in that diffused pattern until it finally has the picture. So that's how diffusion works. It's kind of taking the noise as a hint of what it's supposed to be looking for and then trying to find it. So a very elegant idea, and it's something, I think it's a 2015 paper that actually introduced this. So it's been around a while, but it hadn't really been implemented for a long time. There's other applications out there like Disco Diffusion that's been around for quite a while, but is not a plug and play type of thing. It's nothing that anybody's going to want to try and tackle unless you enjoy the technical aspects of things like the collab worksheets and so on. And I'm not even going to go into that, but just having this this Discord as a front end is a big savings. Otherwise, you'd be driving yourself absolutely nutty. Anyway, so let's dive into how this works. So the idea is the dreamed, and then you're going to have, you can put -H if you want help. Now, there are two ways to do these. You can put -- like you do in MidJourney. So if you're used to the MidJourney way of doing things, you may use these, or you may use these, but be aware, these are case sensitive, right? So let's do this. Let's put the commands off to the one side, and we'll put this off to the other side here, so you can kind of see what we're doing. And we'll say we're going to dream of a car of cats out driving around. So something fun and simple. Now we can specify the height or the width, and it's going to end up with a square just like MidJourney does. And I tend to find that the image will vary wildly if you give it like a portrait, a vertical oriented portrait versus say a horizontal landscape side portrait, because it will change how it's applying the diffusion. So I tend to want to go, if I'm shooting portraits, I'll try and do it the other way. So it's width, comma, height, right? Width and height. So we can do something along that line. So let's go over here and we'll say minus height. And this must be a multiple of 64. And I put the graph up here at the top. But most of you probably know this, you know, your 1024 by 768, you know, your standard screen sizes. We're going to go with something smaller here because otherwise it's going to take for freaking ever. So we'll go with a height of 640. I'm actually going to go with the width of 640 here and a height of, let's do 320. So we know that it's going to be wider than it is tall. And then say, well, how many images do we want? So that's the other thing we say. Well, let's do 9, let's do 5. How many you're looking for? Obviously, it's going to take longer if you ask for a lot of them. So let's just go for something simple. Let's just go for 3. You can ask if you want them to be individually listed or shown in a grid. I would be shown individually, and there's a new command that is not in this help document yet, and that is G, and that is to show them in a grid. So I think for this we'll do them individually because I think that's more interesting for what we're doing here. Now the next, let's just run this command. Well, I'm not going to run this command yet. Let's wait a second because there's something else I want to show you here, and that's these other things: the CFG scale and the steps. So these two things are probably the most important items in these, and I see a lot of people skipping it when they're doing this. They're worried about the artist. Let's worry about the artist. Let's do Octane renderer. That is more or less an artist because that's a look or a feel. Highly detailed. Highly detailed. That's good enough. And you have to be pretty specific. I find that I'll end up with a horrible line drawing, and it's like it looks like a kid did it, and I don't really like that look. So I try and be a little more specific about what I'm looking for here, and that's probably good enough for our example. Now let's talk about those other options I was bringing up. So here is, and I'll put this link to the spreadsheet. In fact, I'll throw it right in the chat right now for you. This is the examples of the Stable Diffusion. These are the CFG scales. So if we look at this, and you can see how it falls off the map here, these are the different scales, and then these are the different types of scales. So you can specify what type of scale or the amount of scale. So you see here that it's using this LMS, KMLS first, but you can ask for other ones like Euler Ancestral, DPM Ancestral, and so on. So you find the one that you like the amount of detail on, and I'm actually good with 7 here. 3 is a bit messy, and 15 doesn't have enough. So let's go with 7. So you can do -C is the same thing. So that's 7. If we look in our documentation here, we can see that -C is the scale. And then we'll use 7. Let's go back to our document here. And then the other one that's really handy is the S, right? And this is the number of steps involved. And again, we look at these. In fact, let's use the Walter White example, which I like to use. We can see that it falls off the map pretty fast, depending on what it is you're looking for. I tend to think that 50 seems to be pretty nice. So a CFG of 7 and an S of 50, that's pretty much exactly what we're doing right now. So let's go alter that. Minus S of 50. All right, so sum up, we have exclamation mark dream, or bang if you're old school, bang of a car of cats, and say bang a car, say a car of cats out driving around, rendered Noctane. Remember, that is a look. That is not a demand. We can't say render it in this specific engine. And then highly detailed, a width of 640, a height of 320. We want 3 images generated. Let's up this. I'm feeling frisky. Let's do 6. We want them individually listed. We would like our CFG set to 7 and our scale set to 50. And then hopefully it won't give me an error. And then again, I can chase this thing down this way. Or again, I can go up to my inbox and then I can wait for it here. And this is a lot nicer than having to swim through this morass that's moving so fast. Obo asks, can you redraw any image you send to it? Currently, that is something they're working on. It is something that DALL-E does, though. So if you upload something to DALL-E, there's actually some pretty cool things that DALL-E does. And again, these engines can be used together. I'm having a lot of luck with mixing them around. Let's see, I have another example here that I will show you from yesterday, or the day before yesterday. I actually did a video on it, and I struggled with it, which was good, because sometimes struggling with things is how you learn them, right? So I did this one as an Alice in Wonderland. It was an AI challenge. I'm just waiting for this to return. Obviously, it's busy right now. They just opened up the 4th wave of beta, so if you're not in the beta for Stable Diffusion, you can still get in, I believe. I don't know if that door is closed or not, but again, they're adding people by the thousands every day, so we are going to wait a bit here, maybe. I'm glad we didn't make this very big. But anyway, when I made this image, I started out with something up here that I really liked. The face was good in another image that I had generated. So I actually have a whole folder here of all the things that I had generated for this Alice in Wonderland, including like this face from this close-up that I liked. And then little things like parts of the dress and little different pieces. And what I had done is then I hated the hair that I had when I did this online. So when I was done, what I did is I went back and I put this in DALL-E and erased her hair and said, beautiful blonde curls. And then, ta-da! And this is the one permutation I got that I enjoyed. The rest of them were kind of meh. But the same thing with the hands. I could have DALL-E redraw the hands for me because MidJourney doesn't do a very good job with that. So using both of these together worked pretty well. All right, here we got some answers back. That's almost right. And again, this is because we have this thing set to such a small amount that scale would help in here. I don't really see any cats. We got some coming up here as a cat. There we go. And I don't even know what that is. Looks like a cat-shaped car. So let's go with this one. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4th image down. 1, 2, 3, 4th image is this here. So let's just steal this again. And we're going to steal it with this, this whole seed and everything here. Go back up here, and I'm going to drop that 1, 2, 3, 4th seed. I'll grab this one and put that in here. Now we don't want 6 of them this time. We just want 1. And remember, you got this capital S is for the seed and a lowercase s is for the steps. Did I get rid of my steps here accidentally? Was that did I not specify it? That must be why this is so terrible. So let's do this again, but let's use steps this time. I must have been talking and not noticed what I had done there. So let's start over again, and minus I of 6 and a step of 50. I like 50. It's paying a lot of attention to what I'm asking for out of it. And you can see that as we up the S's in these things, it starts to, this is a CFG scale. If we start to kind of fall off the boat here, or if we're going really low, with the combination of the two, you get something not quite unique. So let's go here. Think of this as it's taking time to refine what it is that we're looking for, like multiple passes, like you're zooming in on something, and so on. Let's see if that works. And it did not. I screwed up. Unrecognized argument of 6. Okay, looks like I forgot a space in here. So at least it's giving me the information I need to be able to go back and do it. Sorry about that. So I of, oh, that's correct. So we want N of 6, I of 6. Oh, no, there is no number argument for I. I means to show them to me individually. So that's my fault. By the way, you will be limited to 1 every minute right now. They have this in here. How customizable is Stable Diffusion compared to something like Disco Diffusion? Right now, it seems like it's pretty stable. It's producing thousands of images a minute, I would guess. they had a statistic yesterday on how many bytes they had, and it was a dumb number. It was really, really good sized number. So those things are, I don't know, subjective, and we'll see more, I guess, as time goes on. Okay, so let's we're done with our minute here, so let's try to make sure we're good here. Make sure individual. By the way, this is the default now, so I don't even have to put this. It was not the default originally, and now it is. So I want to make sure that I have enough spaces in here. And there we go. And it didn't throw an error right away, so we'll just wait for it. So we can get rid of this because we've already seen that. This train wreck here was without our S value, the step value, which I think is important. Obviously important because it looked terrible otherwise. So I'll wait. So we can kind of see what people are doing here, and they're having a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of amazing imagery being created in a very varied amount. I find MidJourney tends to look very painterly, and I actually love the look of MidJourney images. So I'm very happy with that. This can take on a much more photographic look like DALL-E. I think DALL-E tends to live more in that photograph of something you didn't know you needed a photograph of, which is, I don't know, somewhat entertaining, but I haven't really found a use for DALL-E other than, say, correcting some parts of images I'm having a challenge with. That the ability to edit an existing image is pretty cool. I might do a video on that, but I think when I do my next edit for the weekly AI challenge, which should come out, I think, tomorrow or today, then I'll probably do a video of me working on that as well. And I'll probably end up using multiple engines to create those things, as well as combining it with my own photography. So that the combination of those, and that's really what I want to do, is because I'm a full-time photographer, right? Did I miss the cats? A car of cats. Yeah, well, that's a sad example. So let's, that's terrible because the cats aren't obvious in here, are they? I wanted to do something where we could see the cats, but that's not happening. Let's refine our message here. That was a horrible demo, wasn't it? Let's do cats out on bicycles. There, cats on bicycles. Group of cats on bicycles. Yeah, and we don't want the seed at the end of this because we don't know what that seed is going to do yet, and we can't forget our S. We don't need that. There's S 50, and we need our CFG of 7, I think is what we decided on. And let's let that rip and see if we get an error. We did not. There we go. So we can simply wait in here in our inbox. This inbox, by the way, I think is one of those things that people don't know about Discord. So if you're sitting here trying to swim through this morass of images and you can't find your own work, that's really the secret to it. And if you walked away with anything from that video today, it's going to be that is there. So there you go. All right, we'll just wait a minute for that. All right, there we go. Cats on bikes. Yes, they are cats. Ooh, this one's actually more entertaining than the other ones. Okay, so I like that last one. So look at this. Ta-da! Cats on bikes. Let's open this up in a window here. It's not the best bike picture of cats in the world, but it's good enough for what we're going to do. So we're going to change it to a different animal now. Let's change it to a dog. So I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, and I believe it's the last one in that set. So let's go up here and grab this seed, which is the last seed. Obviously, some of this is going to become a lot more automated at some point. And we're going to take off the number of images because we don't need any more than one. And let's change this to a group of dogs on bikes. So the exact same seed and everything else. Why is did I not have? It didn't keep the S or the C in here that I put in. Maybe I did that incorrectly, but I didn't think I did. Well, let's go ahead and throw this out here. I'm going to remove these quotes just in case. Things like that. Trip one up, and then you got to wait a minute for it to figure out what it's going to be doing. There's no bikes in this picture. It's interesting. There we go. And open original. So we should end up with something that looks similar, but is using a completely different object. So we could maybe add hats. We can do different things like that. Does it allow more nudity in MidJourney? Yes, it does. It does have nudity, but they're asking you not to do that. And then people will report you because every image is public domain, which is why we're able to show the stream here, unlike MidJourney, where ownership belongs to the person who created the prompt, where in this engine, it is not that way. So it's a lot more open-ended. And some of these images that this thing is producing are insanely cool. Like this looks like a Boris Vallejo more than anything else. Yep, Boris Vallejo. Knowing the different artists and the styles of people that you love is a really good way to come at any of these engines, by the way. It's really the secret to the success of finding what you're looking for is having a visual thought as to what you want. There are some really great websites for these things. I'm going to make a separate video on that, but let me show you some of these today that I use now. Give me a second here. Let me find them because I hadn't thought about bringing this up, but I'm going to. So the Visual Artist Encyclopedia, this is one that this gentleman put together that I really love. And I'll put the link to it down below in the chat here. Let me find you. Oop, did I just lose my 2 seconds here? I might have just lost my streaming window. Let me try that again. Oh, hopefully I didn't lose you these. All right, let's try this again. So I have the spreadsheet here for this. I'll throw this into the chat. So this spreadsheet has a really good representation of a lot of different styles on it. So you basically can scroll down and find out who it is that you like. This is a really awesome reference. So I like this one quite a bit, and I've been using it a lot. So it's probably my favorite listing there. And then the other one that I really like, I do my bookmarks over here, is, see, that's the visual style. The other one I like is the artist reference, which is this one. This one's using the same Utah teapot that Bob had put in the MidJourney thing. This goes through and kind of shows by the different types, which can be different. Like you see a lot of people using ArtGerm, for example, or our best ArtStation, things like this kind of give you a visual reference as to what those are. So combining those two things together. But note that, do you see how different these things are if you're looking at horizontal versus vertical? If you're working on on a person portrait, use a vertical orientation, you get a much more positive answer. You'll get something that you can more easily use. It's more like Discord blocks and nudity and gore, which is why I generally think it's the wrong platform. It does and it does not, because I actually, as I say, I'm a body painter, and on my Discord we talk about body painting on one of the channels, and we show examples of what we're working on and so on. So it doesn't seem to do that. That's probably something that's varied from group to group or person to person. Yeah, in general, don't do nudity with any of these engines. That's a horrible idea. That's a really great way to get banned from these things and then not enjoy them. You're going to be watching everything as everyone else enjoys it, and you don't get to. So just be aware of that. Yeah, so there you go. That's kind of the Disco Diffusion, and I don't know if there's any questions anybody has, but basically pay attention to the documentation, which again you can get by dream help or -h here. So at any time, and the commands are changing almost every day. Like they are adding new commands constantly. I know this morning they said they'd added some new things. Looks like they have more down here now. This steps, you can change the type of step that you like. Now the -G option is there as from yesterday, which is when I was using this copy of the documentation. So every day they're adding new things, and they have some they haven't documented yet, so they're still coming, which I'm excited to see. So again, this engine don't think of it as a competitor to MidJourney. It's an assistant to, if you're trying to create a piece of art, right? I'm assuming that you're not stopping here and saying whatever the bot hands you, you own, because technically maybe you do on the MidJourney side. But do you feel like you've accomplished anything as an artist? I would not. Prompt crafting is something that you can do and you could keep to yourself. But this is so early on in this process that there's so much that I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going. This is only like a couple weeks into this, And I think this is so amazing. Give it a year. Where do you think this is going to be? And oh, second spreadsheets. Yes, sorry. Let me grab that again. Sorry. That was the visual. No, that was the artist reference. Yes, sorry. Yeah, I'll throw that into the chat for you as well. There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know if that took me off the air there when my live window closed. I don't believe that it did, but sorry about that. Yeah, overwrote my browser window on the other side. Yeah, I can't get either of my two cameras to work, and I've got I have a meeting at noon, and I have to make that work. So I have an hour and a half to figure out why my Sony a7R4, which is what I use with my webcam, isn't working. So, yeah, that's just it. So what was the question here? Try syntax cinematic lighting. Yeah, I mean, it's all kinds of crazy stuff that you can do on here. Oh, by the way, keep an eye on your sizes here, like these multiples of 64. You can ask for much larger images. Remember that MidJourney is only handing out about 1,500 pixels or so on the long edge, and you can get wider here, but you're going to be waiting for it, especially because they opened the floodgates for beta 4 today, which means you may be waiting 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes with the higher samples, so if you hit your steps at 50, for example, you may be waiting a while for that image to pop up, especially if it's larger. Like these Cthulhu ones that I had worked on here, they took a serious amount of time for them to come up. Let's see, it says here 271 seconds. So I was waiting around for a while, just kind of waiting for it. But I'm really happy with the images. Now, MidJourney obviously turned out something completely different than any of these, but I don't know which ones I'm happier with. I mean, I really think some of these are more interesting, but especially because it puts the person into perspective because they use the word gigantic. So again, banana for reference, or a person, whatever you feel like in there. But I think that was a pretty handy thing. So again, keep an eye on the documentation because they're updating it constantly. And just be aware that it's a different engine. And I, again, highly suggest that you don't use these things as your point of departure and say, look, I made art by entering a prompt. Take it into Photoshop or Krita. Krita is another great tool that people, I think, should be using more of. If you're not familiar with it, it's a free painting application, and it's fantastic. And it's open source, and it does more painterly type of stuff. So again, it works really well with MidJourney and things like that. Instead of paying for Photoshop, if you're not a Photoshop person, there's still a learning curve to this. But it's I think it's really worth your time to try and modify what it is that the AI is giving you instead of just using that as your only thing and saying, look, I made art because I typed in a prompt. And I don't know that anybody's going to feel real good about that. At least I wouldn't. I want it to be my own. That's why I say it. I'm kind of smashing things together to make my own artwork out of it. But that's what I've got for today, gang. So if you liked this video, please take a minute and actually click the like button. Like, nobody bothers to click the like button. And that's kind of what helps this thing get out there and around. Tomorrow I'll be doing more Photoshop because that's actually my Capture One day. So Capture One is a piece of software used in the professional photography industry, and that's what I do full time. So I'll be using Capture One and Photoshop, and then modifying some portraits that I shot in the studio. And I may actually incorporate some MidJourney into it. I haven't decided yet, but I really like using that tool in with my other my real work. And then I actually have some other things that I'm going to be doing too with MidJourney later on in the week. And then I've been working on my laser cutter too, which is completely unrelated to the rest of the channel, but it's something that I enjoy, and this channel is stuff I like. So there you go. If you liked it, thanks for coming in today and hanging around with me. I appreciate it. And good luck. If you've got something interesting, please feel free to pop into my Discord. And I think there's a link into there's a link to it down below. And we have MidJourney channels as well as Stable Diffusion channels. So if there's stuff you want to pop in there, feel free. Everybody, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you all next time. And don't be afraid to get out and suck at something new today, right? Bye.